This episode of Own the Grey is brought to you by I Am. Discover your unique talents, realize your potential, and align to your path. Take the first step to uncover your life purpose by visiting debrajones.ca/courses. What is your dosha? Discover why knowing this can help you find balance in your life. This episode has a lot of juicy information to help you live your best life. So get comfortable and we'll begin. Welcome to Own the Grey, a podcast to dispel the notion that aging is undesirable and setting new positive attitudes. I'm Debra Jones, and I believe you can be vibrant and healthy throughout the best years of your life. Today, we're going to talk about one of the world's oldest medical systems, which remains one of India's traditional healthcare systems today. This medicine is called Ayurveda. Even though I'm an alternative health professional myself, I know very little about Ayurveda, and so I connected in with my neighbor and friend to learn more. Catherine Stilo is a yoga and spirit-full living educator. She's co-creator of a podcast called Come Alive, the Living Spirit-Fully Guide to Thriving. And Catherine teaches classes and workshops in yoga, permaculture, and nature connection at TerraKula. Catherine Stilo, welcome to Own the Grey podcast.
Oh, thanks, Debra. It's very exciting to be here.
We've got lots to talk about today. And the first thing I wanted to ask you, actually, TerraKula, what does that mean?
Yes. So terra comes from the Latin earth. And kula, there's several interpretations of this one. In Sanskrit, kula is a community of the heart, a community united with a like-minded feeling or vision. And kula in the Hawaiian tradition means school. So it was a beautiful marrying of earth community, earth school.
Beautiful. And that's the name of your business. What do you do there?
TerraKula is more of a philosophy than a business. And TerraKula actually started as the name of a farm site that my partner John owns. And Terra is the earth. And then we have the school and the community of the heart. And so the idea was our tagline, growing together. And so this was the site where we would host these transformational experiences, whether they were workshops or yoga classes or permaculture classes, all of those kinds of things coming together as the place for these experiences to happen. And with the shift and everything, the way that things have been going, we had to make a shift as well as many people have. And so the idea was, well, if it's not an actual site, then does it still live? And it absolutely does, because it was never about the site. It just happened that would be the name of the site. It's the idea that it's a place where we all come together and we all grow together.
So it's really the hub of all the work that you do.
Yes.
Nice. And so what do you find you're doing these days?
Oh, so these days there's yoga teacher training online. We've moved that to the online space. There's yoga classes online. So I've moved those to the online space. And the permaculture one, we're going to offer when we can regroup, because it is such a hands-on immersive, that there just wasn't a way to do that and get the full experience online. I mean, you can get the intellectual part of it online.
Right.
So we'll hold off for that one.
Yeah, well, the things are moving in the right direction, so that's great. But I think most of us are really more in tune with what we eat and what we do because of this change in our way of living. And so I think there's going to be I think you need to get ready for a big boom in business of people wanting to learn more. And, even people's gardens these days, there's trial and error, obviously, for every gardener. But if you're a new gardener and you have just discovered that some things don't survive and there might be some better ways of doing it, then permaculture is certainly something that you might want to look into, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So today we're going to talk about Ayurveda. Can you simply tell us what it is?
Yes. I'm chuckling because this is such a vast topic that, people spend their whole lives dedicated to this. There are Ayurvedic doctors, there are Ayurvedic practitioners that have immersed themselves. And so there's such this wealth of information. Simply put, Ayurveda is an ancient holistic system of healing. It's a system that understands these connections between mind, body, and senses. Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word. Ayus is life. Veda is knowledge or science or wisdom. So Ayurveda translates to the science of life or the wisdom of life. It's a sister science to yoga, and it's found in the Vedas or books of knowledge. And it's one of the oldest ways to stay well. It's over 5,000 years old.
Wow, it's been going for a long time and still going. So there's got to be something to it. And so my perspective, because I didn't know anything really about Ayurveda other than it was one of the things that's classed alternative medicine, if you will. But what I understood, it's really a way of understanding yourself better. That's basically what I got out of it from the little studying that I did on it. But there are some founding philosophies of Ayurveda. What are these philosophies? What's the background?
I love how you've put it, that it's a way of understanding the self better. That's exactly what it is. So the fundamental philosophy is that our natural state is of vibrant health. So at the core of each and every being is vibrant health. Now that natural state gets buried beneath layers of imbalance over time. So things happen, life happens. If there is any ailment or dis-ease, so we say that word as dis-ease, so a lack of ease, the root of that ailment or dis-ease is typically an imbalance. So this balance is the key to optimal health, maintaining or restoring that balance. This health and harmony comes from within. And some of us may have heard the quotation, Hippocrates, "Let food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food." There's an Ayurvedic proverb that says, when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. When diet is correct, medicine is of no need. So yeah, it's very powerful. And that, the food portion of it is one piece of creating health and harmony. It's a large piece of how these foods influence us. And so that brings us to the celebration of the individual, which is a philosophy in Ayurveda. There are no blanket statements. There may be one, and that has to do with processed food and avoiding processed sugars. So that's the one blanket statement for everybody. But other than that one, it's a celebration of the individual. It's that each person is unique. Each person is a combination of energetic forces, and that all life is governed by the laws of nature. We're influenced by the 5 elements. So we need to understand how these elements have come together in our unique constitution and composition, and then work to restore or maintain balance from that perspective.
That's really interesting, because I'm a practitioner of traditional feng shui, and we use elements as remedies to balance the energies of the environment. So you're saying that in Ayurvedic medicine, you use the elements too. What elements, and I wonder if they are exactly the same, and how do they relate to us as human beings?
Yeah, I love when different schools of thought and systems kind of have the same fundamental ideas. So Feng Shui, traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, they have this idea as well. Now, they might not be exactly the same elements, and it doesn't matter. The specifics doesn't matter. The idea is that these energies are working to make us the whole and to start to understand those. So in Ayurveda, the 5 elements are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So those are the 5. And I don't know if those are the same as the Feng Shui.
Metal is in Feng Shui.
Okay.
As one of the elements, not ether. So we have
okay.
air. So we switch it up. Yeah.
A little bit different.
It is, but it's really a way to describe a type of energy, isn't it? So
exactly.
It doesn't really matter what it's called.
Yes, beautifully put. Yeah, it's a way of understanding. So how do these 5 elements relate to us? So the 5 Ayurvedic elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So we think of the qualities of these elements. Earth is a smooth, heavy, inert, nurturing element. This element nurtures. Water is smooth and heavy and damp, and water flows. It's a flowing element. Fire is hot and mobile and is an illuminating element. It illuminates, brings things to light. Air is light and mobile and cool. And this is a transformative element. It works to transform, and it's associated with that movement. And ether, spacious and dry and vast and opens. And ether is actually, its qualities are more of an absence of the others, because ether is the space that holds all of those other elements. So the idea in Ayurveda is that we are influenced by these elements, and that each and every person is a combination of these elements, all of these elements in differing proportions. These elements combine to form doshas or constitutions. And there's 3 doshas in Ayurveda, and they are a combination of these elements.
And so what are the doshas?
So the doshas, space or ether and air, come together to form the vata dosha.
Okay.
Fire and water come together to form pitta, and water and earth come together to form kapha or kappa. To Sanskrit's a very evocative language, so people may have subtle differences in pronunciation. So the vata dosha, this combination of ether and air, is about movement. Vata means that which moves things. It's dry, rough, light, cold, thin, bony, wispy. Vata constitutions may have inconsistent appetite or poor digestion. Pitta, this fire and water blend. Pitta is about digestion. It translates to that which cooks. And pitta is sharp, hot, light, moving, acidic. People who have predominant pitta dosha are usually of medium build, may be prone to skin rashes, have strong appetites. These people are the ones who become hangry. If we've ever, if we've ever heard of that or have experienced that. Pitta typically has strong digestive fire, and they're competitive. And then our kapha dosha is about stability. It's about that which sticks. It's a moist, cold, heavy, static dosha. And people who are predominantly kapha are heavy-boned, oily, smooth skin and hair. Their metabolisms typically are slower, and they kind of avoid the physical activity.
Can we be a combination of doshas?
Yes. So we are all doshas. We are all 3 in different proportions.
Right. So the one with the highest proportion, it represents who we are, or how we. What does it represent? Shows you how much I know, right?
Oh no, this is great for clarification. So we are all three of these. Most of us have a predominant dosha, and some of us have a predominant one or two doshas, and we call that dual doshic. So it is very important to keep in mind that we are all three of these. And one is not better than the other at all, because we're all three. And it's not a label. It's not a label or a box to put ourselves in, to make excuses for ourselves. So these manifest. We can observe these through our qualities and tendencies. So our physical builds, we can look and maybe take a guess at which dosha is predominant. Biological functions, how things move through the body, our digestion, that's another way that these doshas present themselves or are observable. And then our personality traits and tendencies. The doshas manifest in behaviors, in tendencies, in preferences. And because we are a mix, this is why we go back to everyone is unique. So there are guidelines to say, okay, well, this is vata, this is pitta, this is kapha. But because we are all such a unique blend, none of us are the exact same proportion. It's like snowflakes. Right? No two are alike. That we are all different proportions of all three of these.
So, Catherine, once we know our dosha or doshas, how do we use this knowledge to help us?
So we can then have a better understanding of ourselves, of how our physical body works, of how our mental body works, of how our emotional body works, of the things that are going to help bring us into balance, are the things that are going to take us out of balance. So that's how we begin to use these.
So that's the Ayurvedic medicine part. So knowing what your tendencies are, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what you need to be in balance. But I guess we have to realize that we're out of balance before we need to take our Ayurvedic medicine. So, how does that work? Like, as far as if we know about the different doshas and we know maybe what that dosha needs to be in balance, but how do we actually use this on a practical level?
So on a practical level, it's observing ourselves and are we functioning at our best? And so example would be if we are a pitta dosha, which is the fire, we're probably going to be drawn to fiery things. And if we are out of balance, we'll notice that those tendencies become exaggerated. So more specifically, an example would be as a pitta who is attracted to the fiery stuff, we may be looking for those fast things, those competitive activities, and be attracted to hot. But that's not what's going to bring us into balance. We are going to need the things that cool us and calm us. Anything that's cooling, that we can bring that in. And that, I just lost my train of thought.
It happens. You'll find it again. But when you're talking about that, that's exactly how we work with the elements in feng shui. Because if there's too much fire element in an environment, in a room, that's when we incorporate some of the water element, because water puts out fire. So it's the same concept, right? That's how the elements work with each other and balance each other.
Yes. And the saying in Ayurveda is that like attracts like and opposite brings balance. So that's we look at our tendencies, and those are the things we may be drawn to because there are preferences. It's the opposite that is going to bring us balance. And we know we're out of balance when we're not functioning optimally. So, for example, with that pitta dosha, and I use that because I'm predominantly pitta a little, and almost dual doshic with vata, but in balance, I'm firing on all cylinders. I'm able to get things done. I'm focused. There's a beautiful, healthy balance of drive without exhaustion. If I'm out of balance, then I'm rigid and not allowing a lot of flexibility in my ways, and things need to be done a certain way. And I might be very sharp, and my words might become very sharp, and I might have a tendency to quickly anger. So those are illustrations of how being out of balance may manifest. And then that's when it's a need to look at, okay, well, what can I bring in to stabilize this? So I go back to balance. So I go back to functioning at my best.
Mm-hmm. And that's really the entire thing about all kinds of medicine, isn't it? It's to find the balance so that we're in optimal health and living an optimal, healthy life. So you talked about yourself, and obviously you've learned how to understand yourself. How would I understand myself?
We go to the self first. Always points to the self. So we can start by simply observing ourselves. What's our physical build like? Are we wispy? Are we medium build? Are we heavier boned build? How are our biological functions? What are our traits and tendencies? So if we think of the qualities of the elements and then think of how it's manifesting in ourselves, we can kind of go, oh, I think I might be this one or this one. So observation first. And then if we want to get more specific and dive into a little bit of a deeper understanding, I mean, these can be a whole workshop in themselves and lifetimes of exploration. There are some great quizzes to help us tune in. So in addition to using our own intuition, listening to our own gut and tuning in, there are quizzes that can help guide us. There's lots online. If anyone wants to Google, what's my dosha? There's a whole list of different resources. And we always say, you know what, try a couple different quizzes, 2 or 3, to see if it ends up in the same place to gain some understanding. And some great ones that I've experimented with, banyanbotanicals.com. They've got one, chopracenter.com. lifespa.com. And I know you'll include all of this in the show's notes. Yeah. And then there's a great book, and there's a website associated with it called Eat, Taste, Heal, an Ayurvedic guidebook and cookbook for modern living. And that's eattasteheal.com. Fabulous, fabulous resource to deepen this exploration.
Awesome. That's great for the resources. And if anyone's like me, I want to immerse myself in the information before I just jump on the bandwagon and say, it's this. I want to go a little deeper to know exactly if this is going to help me in the right way and not just playing with something, obviously. Well, you talked about our different build, for instance, and the way we look can change over time. I wonder, many of our listeners will be over 50. I'm wondering if doshas actually change with our age.
What a fabulous question. Yes, they do change. In Ayurveda, there's a couple concepts. One is prakriti. There's different ways. I remember evocative language, different ways of saying this. But that is what we are born with, our natural state, our original state. And then vikriti is the relative state. It's what's happening now. So there's what we're born with, there's what's happening now. And what's happening now, balance may have shifted. There are conditions that draw us away from our natural state, our state of balance. Those can be diet. Those can be shifting rhythms and cycles. Those can be actions, thoughts, emotions, stressors in our lives take us out of balance. Other sensory inputs take us out of balance. Too much stimulation from social media, too much noise, the types of movies that we're watching. All of these vibrations influence our state of balance. So there's original state, what we were born with, and then there's what's happening now, our relative state, and looking at those. On top of that, things change as well. There are natural rhythms and cycles at play in our daily rhythms, in our seasonal rhythms, and then in our life stage rhythms. So on a daily rhythm, there's a 12-hour cycle of the body, a kapha cycle in the hours of 6 to 10, a pitta cycle in the hours of 10 to 2, and a vata cycle between 2 and 6. And then there's daytime, nighttime phases of that 12-hour cycle. So there's these energies that are at play. And then there's the seasons. Spring is kapha season, March to May. It's that gooey season. Everything's mucky. And if we think of mud in the spring, that's kapha. And then we shift into that pitta season, the fiery season, the June to September. And then vata is October to February, when it's cool and dry and there's lots of wind. So these are always at play and influencing us. And then, of course, to your question, yes, the life stages change. We think of babies. They're ooey gooey, mucusy. That's the kapha, right? So between babies to teens, there's that phase of kapha. Then we move into that fiery period where we want to go out and we want to take on the world and we want to conquer and we want to achieve, and we're so driven and full of energy. And that's pitta. That's the teens to like 40, 50-ish, around that range. And so then when we're talking over 50, we're in that vata stage. We're in that cooling, drying life stage. We may notice that we're dried out, right? Dry skin. We start to experience things with our joints. It's the tissues of the body drying. We may start to notice that we're tired. That all that movement that has accumulated, that is acting on us, shifts things around, changes things around. Our mental state too. We may find that we're, very heady or difficulty focusing, or lots of thoughts. So what we were born with, our natural state, is always our natural state. These other things are the things that influence us and take us in or out of balance. And so we are ever changing. And that's what we need to remember. There's these influences and energies acting on us, and we stay in tune with ourselves to know when we're not functioning at our best, and what can we do to bring balance.
So it's really managing who we are in the moment. Mm-hmm. So we notice how we're feeling. We notice what's going on with our body. We notice what's going on in our lives, and aim for a balance and a harmony in all those different areas. I can understand now why Ayurvedic doctors go to school for so long, because, and like in feng shui too, there's different things that we layer, different knowledge and wisdom that we layer upon everything. We layer one on top of the other and then see what we've got. So it isn't just looking at one chart and seeing it's this. There's the chart, put on top of that the season that we're in, put on top of that where we are in our life stage, and then we kind of look down at all of these layers and see, what's in harmony, what's not. And I think the easiest thing, or the easiest way for anybody to know what they need, is to just be still and notice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can use all of these other things as guidance or guidelines, ideas of what might bring us balance. At the end of the day, we know, and there's also a saying, one size does not fit all, and one size does not fit one all of the time. So something that worked for us even yesterday might not be the thing that we need today, with the different energies that are at play. So we can do these things to help. Eating in tune with the seasons can really help to bring balance, because what's available at those times is going to balance out the energies that are at play in those seasons. What we eat when we're over 50 may not be what we ate when we were in our teens or when we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking at that, and especially when we are talking over 50, when we are talking in that Vata life stage, because that Vata stage is that stage of movement. That's when a lot of imbalances can happen, right? Because those Vata winds, that movement blows things out of balance. It's very easy to come out of balance, and it's also very easy to come back into balance by doing a few things. Vata gets remedied with oils on our food, rubbing oils on our skin. And there's different types of oils that we can play with because different types of oils correspond to the different doshas. So it's playing with what we need. Warming foods are very helpful for bringing Vata balance. Soups, cooked foods, things like that can help. Warming spices, bring those in. And meditation is fabulous. And if meditation isn't something that our listeners are drawn to or think they can do, it's not meditation in that traditional sense. It's not, I have to sit there and hold a mudra with my hands and whatever image comes to mind. Meditation is something that we do that can just bring us to stillness. So it might be a hike in the woods. It might be sitting by a body of water or a waterfall. It might be looking at a sunset. It might be one of those traditional forms of meditation that we think of. So whatever it is that can calm that mind.
Yeah. And I guess that's where all the yoga fits into that too, doesn't it? Because you're being mindful, you're being aware of what your body feels like, and having that time to go within. As you said, that's really the main thing. So I wanted to talk just a little bit now about your podcast, because I'm sure, I mean, this is great information, and I'm sure you've got lots of tips that you share in your podcast. What is your podcast about?
Yeah. So our podcast is Come Alive, the Living Spirit-Fully Guide to Thriving. And this is a podcast that was co-created with a longtime friend of ours, Paul Galoro. And what we're hoping in this podcast is to help people understand that the power is within them to make change. True change comes only from within. We change our inner world, and that's how the outer world changes. And what we hope is that this podcast can present some accessible ways to living a joyful life, because we found that sometimes we know where we want to be, but this idea of living a joyful life is a little bit abstract. It's like, well, how do I accentuate the joy in my life? And so these are accessible ways to doing that.
Cool. That's something that's worth listening to. I know I did listen to one or two of your episodes already, and yeah, it's full of information. So yes, Own the Gray listeners, go over to Come Alive, the Living Spirit-Fully Guide to Thriving. That would be awesome. So Catherine, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
That would be fantastic. And visiting TerraKula, TerraKula.org. And that'll be in the notes as well.
Great information. Awesome. If you'd like to leave us with a key takeaway, what would that be?
The key takeaway is that old adage, know thyself. Cultivate that relationship with ourselves. We are the experts in us, and tapping into that inner wisdom, that inner guru. The body wants to heal itself. Health is our natural state. There's an innate ability to heal itself if we can get out of our own way. So just exploring that and who we are and what is going to bring us balance in this moment.
I love that. I love that. I am my own guru. It reminds me, a good friend of mine, Shelley Cablin, she once shared what the word guru represents. G, you are you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's spot on. That's absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
And that's really a philosophy that I hold as well, is that we're all totally unique, just like everybody else.
All these other things are ways to help guide us to illuminate ourselves, that guru, and they're good sources of information. Just remembering that those aren't the answers. The answers are inside. Those are just pieces of light to shine into the darkness so that we can sort it out. Yeah.
Well said. Well, thanks, Catherine Stilo, for joining us in Own the Grey today. And we'll get in touch, and we've probably got a lot to talk about, you and I. So thanks for joining us today.
Oh, we do have a lot to talk about. And thanks for inviting me, Debra. It's been a pleasure.
Go to ownthegrey.ca to follow us and listen to more great episodes. Or you can listen on Apple, Spotify, Google, iTunes, Amazon Music, Stitcher, and more. This episode of Own the Grey is brought to you by I Am. Discover your unique talents, realize your potential, and align to your path. Take the first step to uncover your life purpose by visiting debrajones.ca/courses.